Hey there, Charioteer here again, and we're following up with beginner lesson number 2, and I'd like to just bust a couple of myths that are common amongst new tarot readers and people that are inexperienced or don't have any knowledge of how tarot works. And I find the biggest myth is that people somehow think that you just gotta be a psychic to be able to use the cards, and that if you're just a regular old person, they're not going to work for you. Now, that's not true. That's not how tarot cards work. They work via your subconscious, and everybody has a subconscious. And when you're dealing with the subconscious, you just kind of naturally fall into how your energy is going to pull from the deck. It lends to anybody being able to use the cards. So being a psychic is definitely not a requirement. Practicing with the cards, getting to know the meanings and following your intuition, expanding on those meanings, and then letting your subconscious, unconscious mind do the work for you. So it's super easy. Anybody can do it. Doesn't require a lot of special abilities. It just requires practice and getting to know your deck, bonding with your deck, and spending time, just learning about everything you can. It's a constant process to learn everything there is to learn. You can learn about tarot that you can apply towards your readings. The second myth, and it's a fairly annoying one, is that tarot cards are evil. No, they're not evil. Tarot cards are just cards. At the end of the day, they're playing cards. They're made by game companies, and the cards aren't going to curse you. They're not going to follow you around. They're not going to ruin your life. They're just a tool like any other tool, like a screwdriver or a hammer. They're tools to build things, and tarot builds up your ability, your intuition. Look at it as like that. They're tools to help you build up your intuition and help you discover more about yourself, human nature, and everything that applies to it. Tarot cards are not evil. Number 3, and this one I hear quite a lot, is that you shouldn't buy your own deck. You have to have one given to you. Well, that's absurd. Obviously, you want to get into tarot cards for a reason. You can't just sit around and wait for somebody to give you a deck. Now, that doesn't mean that being given a deck is bad. I've given decks away. I've received decks, and that's all fine. But if you want to learn to read tarot cards, you can't just sit around and wait for one to mysteriously show up on your doorstep. Oh, now I can start learning about tarot. Somebody gave me a deck. Going to Amazon or going to a psychic fair or anywhere else that sells decks, even eBay, it's okay. Now, buying a deck from a retailer or eBay or getting one comes with the fact that the deck was handled by somebody else. You probably want to cleanse it. We can go over that in another lesson. But it's okay to get a deck from a store, from Amazon, get it gifted to you, whatever. You don't have to have one gifted. Just because you went out and bought it doesn't mean it's not going to be. It's going to lose some of its special power to help you divine readings for people. It's just not true. Another myth that's really common is to never let anybody else touch your deck. Well, that's a personal choice, I think. Some people prefer that you don't let anybody touch your deck. I personally think that if your querent is asking you, or coming to you and asking you a question, it's better if he picks the cards, she picks the cards, and because then it's his personal or her personal energy going into the reading, and I think it's more accurate that way when they pick the cards. Doesn't mean it can't be accurate when you do it for them. In fact, they may not want to pick them. They may be scared. They may not want to touch the cards, which is all fine. I think you can still do an effective reading online. I certainly do those. I think you can do it over the phone. But I think for the best results, it's face-to-face, because you can have an interaction with the person, get to know them, get to know the issue a little better, and then they can take their energy into selecting the cards. Now, when they're done, you want to cleanse that out off of there so none of the residual energy is left hanging around that could possibly affect another reading for yourself or the next person that's coming to you. You want to go through a personal ritual that you choose or a method that you choose to cleanse your cards. And lastly, you have to follow all these complex rules. There's the myth that tarot has to be done a certain way. You have to follow certain rules with spreads. Only these spreads can work for these situations, and none of that is true. It's all a personal preference. You could be Christian and be a tarot card reader. You could be Muslim and be a tarot card reader. You could be Wicca and be a tarot card reader. So there's no religious rules. You can make up your own spreads. You can just use the movie method, the storyboard telling method. It's really up to you and how you develop your style of reading the cards and how the cards speak to you. There's no set in stone rules as to how to even cleanse the deck, how to charge your deck, how to get to know your deck. It's all going to come down to what you feel comfortable with, and eventually you establish your own way of doing things. The only thing I highly suggest is getting to know the basic meanings of the cards. That would be the only thing I would throw out as kind of a rule, but even that doesn't, that's just me. Take it for what it's worth. Personally, I think that it's harder to develop your intuition on certain things if you don't know where the foundation for the meaning of a card is. But heck, you can just look at a picture and you can get your own mind made up on what exactly that picture means to you and go from there if that's what you want to do. So there are no rules that you have to follow in tarot. There's suggestions, and I can get into some suggestions in subsequent lessons on how I do things and how I think they work good for me. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work good for you. But the last myth, number 5, was there's no stone cut rules on how to do things. Eventually, you're going to find your own way to do it. You're going to find your own way to lay out the cards that tell you how a situation is developing. So I hope you'd enjoyed this quick lesson, and I'll catch you in the next one.